So we've gone live, I believe. Just wait for comments to show up. So I'm here with Laura. So if you can see us or hear us, let us know. Waiting for notifications on my phone. I haven't gotten that yet. If you can see us live, please leave a comment. Let us know where you're joining us from. We're talking about, succeeding in your career, your business analysis career today, and I have Laura here with me.
Awesome. And I should have asked you this before, but will I see the questions in the chat off to the side, or will it be on LinkedIn?
So the questions actually show up here, but
okay.
I find sometimes there's a lag sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's why I got people to also send questions ahead, because technology we can't really say. So if you can see us live, okay, so I got a notification now on LinkedIn. So we're live. Hi, Justin. Hi, Oliver. Hi, thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from? Ooh, Oliver from Costa Rica. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking about succeeding in your business analysis career. And, this is something that, a lot of, new business analysts and even existing business analysts are always, they get anxious about. So we're going to be talking about this and, speaking with Laura. I had an interview with her about 2 weeks ago, and, we had a great conversation. So we're bringing it back to LinkedIn, and we're going to be talking to you and, you being here with us and asking your questions. So feel free to ask your questions, engage with us in the chat, and we're happy to help you. So let's get started. So I have here Laura, Laura Brandenburg of Bridging the Gap. Probably must have come across, her book, her blog, her YouTube channel. She has a lot of media where she uses to champion business analysis. So let's get started. Let's get to meet you, Laura. Hi, Laura, and welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited. This is my first LinkedIn Live, so it's a new thing. I love
it. So let's get to meet Laura. Who's Laura Brandenburg?
Who's Laura Brandenburg? Well, I am the founder and CEO of Bridging the Gap. And Bridging the Gap is an online training company specifically for business analyst professionals. And we focus on core foundational skills and applying those skills as you're learning them on the job so that you leave with work experience and work samples and like actual confidence in your skills. And so that's who I am today, but I know we want to talk about like how we got there and my journey. I was a business analyst for a long time as well, before I struck out on my own. I was also a manager, a director, overseeing a business analyst team, a project management team, and a quality assurance team, and did some consulting as I was getting started with Bridging the Gap. So I have a lot of different perspectives on business analysis that I can share. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have or dive into anything that would be the most useful for people.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. So let's talk about your journey, right? Mm-hmm. How did you get into business analysis?
Yeah, so out of college, I had a degree in philosophy and English from a liberal arts school. And my parents refused to pay for me to go get my master's in philosophy. So I decided that I needed to go find like a real job, right? And ended up in an editorial department of a publishing company, which on the outside looked like the gold mine for somebody with a background in English. Like I was responsible for helping get books to market and doing editorial work on books. On the inside, what it felt like was like glorified data entry. Like I didn't write the content. I didn't even edit the content. A lot of times I was like proofing the content that somebody edited to make sure like that their changes actually got incorporated. Like it felt very administrative, very data entry-ish. And the path to getting even from my assistant editorial role into an editor role where I would be responsible for essentially project managing the whole book was like a 3 to 5 year. Like to do it in 3 years was like outstanding, but it was like, oh no, that's something like 5 years from now, like you might be able to do. Mm-hmm. And I was just frustrated. I was like, I don't even know that I want to do that. And it's such a long path. And one of the things that we were doing in our company was like that I was in the book side, the print book side, but there were also a lot of technology projects of putting that information online and organizing those reference books that we were working on into like online databases that were searchable. And so I kept just pushing, like, can I get involved in a tech project? It just seemed like those were interesting and exciting.
Right.
Yeah. And then I finally, like, I got involved and pushed again to like more responsibility, and like the call in the department was like, oh no, we don't do anything more than we have to. Right. And I was like, well, I want to do more. Like, this is interesting and exciting. I'm learning new things. And finally I did create an opportunity to do more and ended up doing some really pretty, like at the time it was a lot of data testing. It's what you would do in SQL today, but it was using a proprietary software that the company had built.
Right.
And that ended up leading to a role in the quality assurance team. So that was my like path out of feeling really stuck in my career and into more of a technology focused role that eventually then led to business analysis.
Yeah. And you know, what you're saying really resonates with me because I was doing the accounting stuff and I was more interested in like what the interesting things we're doing in the projects, right? So I just like you, I, you know, found a way to just try to get out of feeling stuck and being more involved in the exciting things, because I found it was exciting, it was more challenging, and I wanted that excitement, right? Because I was kind of intrigued with how, you know, technology drives everything around us and how, you know, how innovation can actually help us to do business better, right? So that was also kind of my own journey with, you know, shifting away from the role that I was doing, which was supposed to be what I went to school to do, but, you know, getting into business analysis.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a common thread too in the people that I help, that they feel drawn to something different, or they might be in what they feel is like a very stuck role, or kind of a methodology, like a role where you're doing something very similar.
Right.
And they want variety.
Exactly. And that's what business analysis gives you. It gives you that variety. Every day is different, new challenges all the time. And you're never doing something repetitive because every project is different. You're working with different stakeholders. It's really exciting. So now let's talk about, you know, so when you got your move into business analysis, how were you able to, you know, succeed in the business analysis career and, you know, change jobs and grow in your career? How were you able to do that? Get technology, you know, without a tech degree, one, two, you know, a woman in technology as well. How are you able to do all these things?
So in that quality assurance role, what I was doing was, so there were software testers who were testing the functionality of the application, and I was testing the data. So because I had the editorial background, so when we search for XYZ term, is it actually returning the right results versus are all the buttons on the screen working correctly? And so I got a crash course, even though I didn't have any technical background, like in how our technology was built. And a big part of that role became this determining whether a bug that was like looked like the data was actually a data bug or a functional bug. And so I learned how that organization's software was architected at the time. And I met a lot of the technology people. I proved myself. I got to learn Excel really well in terms of manipulating data in Excel. Not like data analytics like we do today, but just like looking at various queries and how things were matching up. And I also, part of that role was also still going back to the editorial teams and involving them. And so I was creating processes that were a lot like what we would call user acceptance testing today. But I didn't have that term at the time. I was just like, well, we need you to look at the product and tell us what's wrong. And then I'll determine what kind of bug it is, and like kind of be in between the business and tech from a testing perspective. And so I was doing that and kind of creating those processes as I went. And I really got noticed as somebody who would fit the profile of business analysis. And I had somebody, the title in that team was systems analyst. It was a little bit more technical, but I had somebody approach me from that team and say, we have a job opening and we think that you should apply. And I had really like never thought about it because I was only about a year and a half into my QA role. And to me, like I felt so invested in that team, and there was so much, like testers are like, bless their souls, always like overworked, right? Always on the tail end of a project. Like, and I was, how can I leave my team? You know, she's like, Laura, it's going to be a lot better money, and this is a better career opportunity. Like, you really should think about it. And then I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I can't just think in the now, right?
I like what you said about better salary and more opportunities moving into the BA role. So moving into the business analyst role, you know, without having that title, and this is a common question that I get, that you get, and you've answered like a million times, right? On your blog, on YouTube, people say, oh, I never had the title of business analyst, so nothing makes me qualified to apply for a BA role or to decide to call myself a business analyst today and apply to a company and say, hey, I can help you, you know, solve your business problems. How were you able to, you know, make that transition even when you didn't have the title? And what would you advise people who are stuck in, you know, that kind of situation as well?
Yeah, and I have actually never officially had the title business analyst because I was systems analyst a couple of times, and then I was manager of business analysis, and then I was director of enterprise solutions. So like it just sort of, like it never happened where I was just plain old business analyst. But what I was interviewed for, I will say, when I was moving from QA to BA, she was looking for like my ability to run meetings, to collaborate with stakeholders, and I feel like I must have been able to, it's hard to remember exactly what I was answering at that time, but like to talk about how I had set up these new processes in the testing environment, and to talk about how I was running meetings with business end users. And my experience, I also had experience like reviewing requirements documents and giving feedback on those requirements documents. And so like I had some exposure that I could speak to, and it was recognized that there was going to be a need for me to like do some on-the-job training in terms of how to actually create the requirements. But I had all these underlying competencies, and because I was making a switch within the same company, I also had a lot of business knowledge and systems knowledge to draw from. And so there were some areas where I actually knew more than the systems analyst at the time, because I'd been like in the data, and I knew I knew what was needed for the specs for the data. And they almost leaned on me for that. And then I leaned on them and got a lot of peer mentoring early on in terms of, you know, higher level business requirements and how to engage a product manager, and what a use case was like, and, you know, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you mentioned the fact that you already had the underlying competencies from your previous role, collaborating with stakeholders, running meetings, getting the requirements, documenting them, and all these things that you already had were the things you were able to speak about in the interview that actually got you into that role. And you never had the title of business analyst, but you were carrying out the functions, right? You were carrying out the tasks, and that's what makes you a business analyst.
And I will say, like, for that actual switch, what probably carried the day more for me was the reputation that I had built, right? Like being the kind of contributor I was, the fact that everybody was like, Laura took this thing that was a problem to everyone and she fixed it, right? And so like that reputation, I think, sold me more than like, it helps me not probably have to do as much work selling my transferable skills, because I didn't have the knowledge I had today, but I had that reputation. And so she already knew that I was somebody that people liked working with. And I try to say that without a lot of ego, but I do remember like having that experience, right? Like people wanted me on the project for that role, and it really did help, I think, pave the path too. So anything you could do to like build a name for yourself, right? And solve a key problem that nobody else wants to touch, and just jump in and make it happen. That can go a long way towards opening up career opportunities.
Exactly. Building a personal brand and building a reputation for yourself is so key. And, you know, just like you said, showing up, you know, being the problem solver, being someone who wants to provide solutions to problems, and not being the person who's always talking about the problems, but actually stepping up And, it's as little as, doing some research and saying, well, these are what our competitors are doing. This is what users are saying. I got some feedback. I took a survey of our users, like all those things, no matter how small it is, but you're actually providing solutions. And that's really what helps you to build a personal brand, even in your organization or even externally. You never know. So you have a degree in English and philosophy, and then you're working in editing, and then you got into QA and then into BA. Were you ever scared of getting involved in technology? Because you said you were excited by that, and I know that feeling because I am excited by technology.
Yeah.
So for people who are scared and feel like, oh, now that I have to work as a BA and they use a lot of technology here, does that mean I have to write code? I have to do all that. People that have that fear of technology, how would you answer that question for someone who's kind of scared about the technology part of things?
Yeah, find people that can help you. So when I took that first data testing role in editorial, like I didn't know what I was doing, but they were so glad somebody was taking it on. Like there was somebody ready to train me on it. She's like, I will come to your desk, because she was the one who was always like, it was thrown on her. And so she saw the opportunity of like, I can spend a half hour to an hour training this person. Versus having, 10, 20, however many hours of work to do myself. And so, it was a lot of reaching out for help, and just, I think there was a certain trust of my intellect that I did have, which I was really enhanced with the philosophy degree of like, I know how to figure things out. I know how to think things through. And so if something's not making sense to me, like I can ask a question. And I would just give that to everyone. Like, if you're going to be a good business analyst, you probably are a strong analytical thinker. And so trusting your analytical thinking, and when there's a gap or something that's not connecting, like who can you ask to help fill that in? And it could be something that you don't know, like, and need to be educated on. It could be something nobody else has thought of, right? Like, oh, this is a gap. And so just asking those questions and building relationships with people on your technical team, adding value to them, making their job easier where you can. And as soon as you start to make their job easier, by communicating things or providing things of value to them, like they're going to be willing to train you too, because then it's like it's a circle that feeds them. And that's how I learned so much about technology, was just always relying on my technical team and asking questions and making sure that I was giving them requirements and giving them information that was helping them as well.
Exactly. So, supporting them and having them support you as well, that's a great skill, for a business analyst, because like I tell people, you can't have all the knowledge. You can't know everything. You're there to rely on your technical team. So your implementation SMEs, your domain SMEs as well. Because as a business analyst, you can come into a new domain and everything is new terms, new jargons. You don't know the software, but you have to rely on your team, but also support them too, because it should be a two-way street. So I've had someone say, oh, but I feel like being a business analyst and getting into tech, it seems like a male-dominated field, right? And there's some women who feel like, oh, it's a male-dominated field. I think I'm going to really struggle with sort of gaining my grounds in that area. What would be your response to that for any woman who's trying to get into business analysis or tech and feels, oh, it's a male-dominated domain?
Yeah, I mean, my first job in QA, it was, I was on the software development floor. Like my QA team was 80% men. I don't even know if there was a female software developer at that time. The business analyst team, like my mentor was female, and then we had 2 males on the team, so it was 4 of us. That was more balanced. I'm trying to remember like how I felt about that. To me, I was just so excited about the opportunity, but like I kind of don't know that I cared. And I don't know that I was aware of the situations we're aware of now, of the differences in pay and the gender. Like I wasn't thinking about that stuff because I was just so in a state of frustration about where I was that I just like, this was better. Right. Like, so, I mean, I think that for all of us as women, we just have to own the value of what we're doing, the contribution we can make, the way, like, and expect people to embrace us for our skills and our abilities. And then of course there's going to be those times when, you know, men aren't acting up to what we would like them to act up to, or you know, you face those scenarios where you do have to address them, but I mean, just go in expecting people to be excited about your skill set and your abilities and the value that you can have or can add.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. You know, embracing your value and what you have to offer, you know, and actually doing the work. When it comes to, you know, business analysis and, you know, working as a BA, there is the skill set with regards to doing the work and, you know, get your requirements and all those amazing things that we do. But there's also the mindset part of things and, you know, how you should think as a BA. Right. And I found that, you know, the mindset is also a key part of things aside from the skill sets. Right. I'd like to, you know your thoughts with regards to how the mindset of a BA, like how having a great mindset would help you in your career as a business analyst, because it's one thing to know how to use all the technology and, you know, all the skills, right? But not having the right mindset. So where does the role of mindset come into business analysis?
Yeah, I think like one of the most important mindsets is a solution orientation, right? So in my first role, actually, my first big project, right, like I had, because I understood the tech, like knitted together this solution in my head. And I remember going to this project kickoff and like sharing, here's the solution, like this is how we're going to do it. It's a really complex thing. And like all, like talk about young and male, right? Like this, I feel like I was this little 25-year-old woman, not girl, but woman, right? Presenting this big idea to a bunch of 30, 40, 50-year-old developers. and like they all freaked out and were like, this isn't going to work. What are you thinking? Like, and like what I had to do, the mindset I had to step into was, oh, right, I'm kind of trying to step outside my job. My job is to come up with the requirements, not necessarily the solution design, but be solution oriented about not just how are we going to solve this business problem, but how am I going to work with this team to get them invested in this? And so, I mean, the solution orientation there was just to take a bunch of steps back. Like, okay, these are the requirements. Let's collaborate and come up with some possible solutions. And, you know, really, you know, respect the fact that I was brand new to this role and there were some things I didn't know about the technology, right? And like, and build that collaborative nature. So I think that's another really important mindset for a BA is collaboration, getting buy-in, right? And just looking for like incremental progress all of the time in terms of moving your team towards clarity and towards agreement and towards shared expectations.
Right. Yeah. And I think the solution orientation is so key, because once you're always thinking of how to provide solutions to problems, like you said, the analytical thinking, you know, that skill is always like on the clock. Like you're always that way, even in matters that are not, you know, project related, even in your personal life. As a business analyst, your analytical thinking skills are like always on the edge, always on the clock. You're always thinking about solving new problems, even solutions that you provided. You're going back and evaluating and see what can we do better, right? So as a business analyst, that solution orientation is a very key part of the mindset. So key.
Yeah.
So someone asked the question and the person said, you know, he works in healthcare and he wants to move into business analysis and is asking how can he do that?
So healthcare is pretty broad. Do we know what like job role? Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it would be really different if you're like in a nurse, like a practical like healthcare giver role versus in a healthcare administration role. Right. And so, and if you, I guess if you are in a caregiver role, maybe moving more towards administration would be an interim step. But it's following the projects. Right. That's, I think both of us shared that. So where, and as even somebody in a a healthcare provider type role, you could also become a subject matter expert on a project, or be the new like beta tester of some new software that they're rolling out. Just anything that gets you involved in a project. And if you are more on the administrative side, similarly, what are the new changes that are coming? What are the new software pieces or updates that are coming? How can you get involved as a subject matter expert or a power user or a tester? And what are the problems? And find the solutions to them, and start spearheading that within your department.
Right. Absolutely. Like you said, just follow the project. Wherever you're doing in healthcare, even if you're in admin or whatever, follow the project. What are the new things that are happening? Are we implementing a new software? Are we changing our processes? Are we automating something that was manual? And then find ways to get involved in those. Join the fun. Join the train. Right. Find ways to get involved in those projects somehow. Volunteer your time if you can, to start getting that understanding of how things are done. And then, as you get that experience, even in your current role, and then maybe getting some maybe training in preparing business analysis, documentation, and all that. And then you use that to impress your manager or whoever. That would be a great way to also make that transition in your current role.
Yeah, and I would add to that, like, if there isn't a project, or if that's not an opportunity that opens up right away, like, you create one. So you could we walk our course participants through this. The very first module of our program is business process analysis, and you can always analyze a business process. So, and that can be a process that you do, or your team does, or that you and people on your team do. And what's the start? What's the end? How does it flow out? And then where are the opportunities to improve that process? And then you get bonus points or more credibility if it's an actual process or updates that could solve a problem that, like, your manager has, or that a team that you work with has, so that you're actually solving a problem that would be meaningful to someone else. And you used some business analysis techniques to do that. And then you've done two things. You've started to create that reputation as a problem solver, and you've built your first business analysis experience if you don't have other experiences, because you can put analyzing the process right in your resume and start talking about that as you seek out internal positions as well.
Exactly. So I have a question here from Grace. She's saying, she's asking, how do you make your project successful? What are some documents I should produce? So I think it's a two-part question. So her first questions are, what are some documents I should produce as a business analyst on a project? And she also asked, what do you have a step-by-step guide to make my project successful? Okay, so those are two questions.
Yeah, I do. I do have a step-by-step on making a project successful. It's our 8-step business analysis process framework, which I'm happy to put the link in at some point, if that's all right, when we're done here. But just to recap that really quickly, because this actually answers the question about documentation too. Right. So, because it's not like there's not one size fits all answer to that question. So I'm kind of hunting a little bit on that while we go through the process. But the process is like, let's see, getting oriented. So what is the project? Who's on the project? Why are we doing this project? Kind of just the general idea of the project. What are the systems that I need to learn about to ask intelligent questions of my stakeholders? And then the business objective, step 2 is the business objective. So why are we doing this project? And that might be your first piece of documentation that articulates why. What are the business objectives, and getting everybody on the same page about why we're doing this project. And then step 3 is the scope. So what are we actually achieving? What are the processes that we're updating? What are the main ideas of the technology that we're implementing, if it's a technology project, right? So just that circle where you would see like what's in scope and what's out of scope. an understanding of that. And so usually steps 2 and 3, if I'm doing a project, get to put together in our scope statement, which would have the business objectives, the key understanding of scope, and a document that's like, you get agreement on this is where we're going.
Right.
Step 4 is creating a business analysis plan. So now that I know what the scope is, what do I actually need to do as a business analyst, and who do I need involved in that project to be successful? So am I going to write 10 use cases, and I'm going to analyze 5 processes and create some data models and do a glossary? Like, what am I actually doing? What are the timelines that I can commit to? And really important, who do I need involved? And then step 5 is actually defining the requirements, which is what we often think of as the whole business analysis process, right? like actually going and doing the use cases, and still there's a lot of collaboration there, right? So it's a very iterative process.
Right.
Step 6 would be supporting your technology stakeholders. So making sure they have what they need to be successful. And step 7 would be supporting your business stakeholders, making sure they understand what's coming and are ready to embrace that. And then step 8 would be assessing the value of what you actually created. So what was the return on investment that, like, did you actually meet your business objectives? And ideally, you're like looking at that all along the way.
Right.
So that you're really reassessing that you're still on track. So to answer the first part of the question, what documents I create, a lot of that comes out of that step 1 of like, who's on my team? What's the methodology that we're using? Are we an agile team? Are we more waterfall team?
Yeah.
What's the scope of the project? Are we just updating business processes? Are we touching technology? Is it a commercial off the shelf? Like, depending on how you do that, you will create different documents. In terms of articulating that. And you always like want to fit in with any organizational standards, and then bring your best practices to bear as well.
Exactly. Well,
right, that was a mouthful of an answer, but it was not a simple question. That one could be like a whole training course.
Right? I know, because that could still be broken down. And, I was going to also ask you about, the framework, but, you've gone through it. And it basically details everything you do as a business analyst from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
From getting oriented and then asking the right questions. I tell people, I say, business analysts ask great questions, right? Ask good questions. You should always ask why. Why are we doing this project? Why do we need this? Who are my stakeholders? What is of value to them, right? What is the context we're working in? What approach are we using? These questions you'd ask, and then you document these things. A BA asks great questions. A BA is not scared to ask why, right? Because at the end of the day, sometimes the recommendation is actually to do nothing, right? Sometimes, and sometimes it's not really all about, a new solution. Sometimes it's the process, right? Because maybe the process is bad, but the solution is not the solution. We're always quick to blame the technology, right? But sometimes it's even maybe we need to train our people. Maybe we don't have the right resources. And that's what a business analyst does, in his or her role. Okay, we have another question. It's from Alfred. He says, "Hello, Laura. I recently listened to your Mastering Business Analysis podcast, and I want to understand how one can become a superhero if your company has work on only a limited domain."
So just can I recap the success path for maybe people who haven't heard that podcast? So just to put that in context. So another model. We have 3 core models at Bridging the Gap. One is the process framework. The second one is the business analyst success path. And that just articulates different stages that we see people go through in their business analysis career, starting with Explorer BA, just like, I'm exploring this, like I think, oh, there's a profession, I might like it. And then intentional, being somebody who's intentional about pursuing a business analyst career and taking action. Official, being somebody in their very first official business analyst role. Proven, being somebody who's used a certain degree of skills and probably implemented most of those stages of the business analysis process that I just articulated. And the next up is superhero, where so proven would be like confident in probably a domain. You've got some success of your projects. You've got a certain track record behind you. Superhero is a jump to being confident in multiple domains, where people are starting to ask for you on their projects. You can walk into just about any methodology, any domain, any environment, and be personally successful. And then the step beyond there would be champions, where you're starting to give back and mentor and train and lead others in some capacity, which there's a lot of different ways to be a champion. But in terms of getting to superhero, when you have a limited domain within your organization, there's always going to be some way that you can change things. Like, so looking at, could you work with a different department that you do today? Could you work with a team that might have a different methodology? But if you're really restricted, that's where you do need to look outside your organization and take responsibility for broadening your experience. And that could be a side project that you do with a nonprofit. It could be side consulting project that you do. Just looking for opportunity. It could be making a leap, right? And choosing, like, yeah, this is a great job, but it's only has so much potential. And so I need to be looking at, how do I bridge what I'm learning here into another role in another company? And for me, when I moved from one company to another, that is when my business analyst skills, like was relying a lot on technical expertise and understanding the business and knowing the stakeholders. But then when I got into a new company with new technology, new business, it was my business analyst skills that really had to step up to the plate to succeed.
Right.
And so sometimes we have to take that upon ourselves too, to make that jump.
Exactly. I shared this with someone today, and I say, well, when you know that you have a sort of roadmap for your career, and you know where you are right now doesn't align with that roadmap, then it's totally up to you to make that move, to make that switch, right? If you want to be involved in a different kind of project or different kind of domain, then you have to make that move. Totally up to you. If you can't find the opportunities where you are, then you can definitely make that move. Thank you, Laura. There's another question here, and although based on our conversation, we've answered a lot of the questions that were asked, but someone is saying, what parameters measures performance of the BA in an organization? What are the performance measures for a BA? What the person is asking.
Yeah, that is like one of the hardest questions. I would say, I left my role managing business analysts, 12 years ago now. And at that time, it was still, because I was so close to the BA role and I understood the pain that they went through, right? It was so hard for me to have measures. It was very easy for project, is the project on time? Does everybody know what they're doing? Are they making progress? And testing is super easy, right? Are we finding defects in production that's super easy to evaluate. Business analysis is so interdependent that it made it really challenging to come up with metrics. And the best resource I know about that is Adriana Beale has a book, an ebook called Measuring the Performance of Business Analysis. And to me, that's a great resource to go to for understanding metrics. And
but it also varies from organization to organization, right? So I don't know if that person is working in the BA role now, but you could also speak with your manager and know, what am I going to be measured against? What are the performance measures what is expected of me? And that would actually guide you. But a lot of times your deliverables, are also a lot of things that, your manager will look at, and how you run your meetings, and, how you engage and collaborate with stakeholders. A lot of all these things are things that people kind of note and use to kind of gauge where you're at. Are you proving? Are you a superhero? Or whatever phase you're at.
Yeah, and keep track of your wins too. So because some of the things that are the biggest successes for business analysts are hard to measure. So like when you mentioned, maybe we don't even need this project, it's just a user training issue, right? So if you go into a project that people are anticipating is a few months of a project, and you discover it's just a training issue and it's over within a week, you saved your company tons of money, but that might not show up in how your organization is measuring the value of business analysis, right? In terms of that cost savings, if that's not what they're measuring. And so every project has different opportunities. And so really keep a record of, what efficiencies have you helped create? What value did you help bring about? How much revenue did this contribute to, or cost savings did this contribute to? So you have those measures to share about the projects that you've been a part of as well.
Exactly. Keeping track of your wins and your accomplishments with regards to cost savings, revenue generated, time savings, productivity, whatever it is, productivity increase, whatever it is, keep track of all those metrics. And of course, those are the things you want to talk about when you're having that review and saying, these are the amazing things I did all year, right? And I deserve that raise or that promotion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there's another question here, and someone says, what's the relationship between business analysis and IT in those? So the person is probably wondering, as a business analyst, do I have to work in IT? Do I have to be in technology? I guess that's what the person is asking.
Yeah, there's lots of different categories or flavors of business analysis roles, and there are definitely business analysts who are more on the business side. Though a lot of them are still within the IT team, right? But they are more of the business-facing business analyst.
Yeah.
So, if you are going to be working as a BA on a software project and not just isolate yourself to business process improvement, which I think is, there's opportunities out there, but they are more limited, right? Like if you're going to, software is so part of how we do business and how we improve processes that you're most likely going to be touching IT in some way. And so having good relationships with your IT team and a good understanding of the potential of technology and how to analyze and write software requirements, not in terms of the system design, but like what does the software actually need to do to achieve a specific business outcome and to implement this business process. Like it's going to be a good skill set to have. And then we do see people in those roles, sometimes sitting within the IT function and sometimes sitting within the business function. It really depends on the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a question here. This is from the live stream, so I can show this. Who says, please, is business analysis a subset of data science? Can a data scientist fit into the exact roles of a business analyst?
It depends on who's defining the terms, right? Yeah. So if you look at the IIBA definition of business analysis, I think data science would be a subset of business analysis, but I'm sure there's an organization out there of data science that would flip things on its head. So I think the root of this question, I'm assuming the root of this question is like, where do I fit? Right. And so I always like, do you like doing data science type activities? And if so, what are those? Do you like doing more business focused activities and business analysis activities? If so, what are those? And how are you going to blend those skill sets together to be a career that you really want to move forward with?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I kind of believe it's actually a subset of business analysis. And because I have people say, well, I want to be a data analyst. I want to be a business intelligence analyst. Well, I believe the foundation is business analysis. And then you can become a specialist, so different flavor, focusing on data, focusing on cybersecurity, focusing on agile, whatever you choose to now become a specialist. But the baseline is sort of with business analysis first.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that's how we approach it too. Like you have these foundational skills, right? These are the foundational skills, and they can serve you in multiple different career paths, and you can change them.
Yeah. Right. So, Laura, why are you a champion of business analysis? You've been writing about business analysis and speaking, and before we got on, we're talking about how we like to communicate and the similarities. And why do you champion business analysis? Why is it something that you love to speak and share and help people with? Why?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think it comes back to my story of how frustrated I was before I moved into this role. Yeah. And like there was a sense of when I stepped into that role and started to learn what that role entailed. And like, it's like I felt like my potential was being realized for the first time. I felt like I was in a role that was just always going to be part of my life. And like, I found a home for like this crazy background I had. And it's really, so to me, the why is like helping people, like it's really gratifying to help people make that similar transformation. Where they're like, I love helping people become business analysts and become better business analysts. I really like helping people who really love, like who find that like their inner being lights up when they're in this role.
Right.
Like, it's just cool to see that light bulb go off, and also to help people really break through other barriers that might be holding them back too. And just to see them grow and expand. And I feel like I've had a lot of opportunity in my life to move up in my career and to start my business and to do all these things. And it's just a way of helping people move along that path as well.
And I totally relate with you and what you say, because I also have that experience, like same experience of, just being stuck and doing something very monotonous, and I wanted something more exciting. And it just felt like when I got into the business analysis world, like I had seen the light, and I'm like, wow, so this is all I've been missing out on. And I just kind of felt a lot more fulfilled, right? Of course, it's better pay, with being a business analyst, and it's more fun, I would say. But for me, it was also the fact that I was happy to go to work every day and do the work that I did. And I also felt like a part of something, right? I felt like a part of something, when, you've worked tirelessly and, your solution is implemented, or the new business process that you remodeled, is working, and the business is achieving their goals, the business objectives are being achieved. There's that sense of fulfillment that you get with being in the BA role. And so also, when people say, well, I want to become a BA, and they actually achieve that, I'm always happy and excited that they're, like, I sort of brought them to another side.
Yeah.
To the other side of the room. That's how I feel.
And when you think about the ripple effect of that, like this gets me out of bed in the morning, right? Like when it's not just like, all kinds of things changed in my life when I actually found work that I was enjoying and being valued at. And like my relationships got better, my opportunities got better, my overall happiness got better. I wasn't a parent at the time, but like if I had been a parent, I can't even imagine what kind of a mother I would have been if I was that unhappy in my work. Right. And like, I know now, because I'm happy in my work, I'm a better mother. And there's a ripple effect of stepping into something that really fulfills you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
And there's also a ripple effect of good business analysis, to be honest. I mean, I've seen a lot of, this is something that pulled me in at the beginning, was like, there's a lot of bad business analysis out there, right? And a lot of people doing, one of the things that I feel like is core to my philosophy is a very practical, results-based approach, like not doing all the formal models. Like there's time and places for formal models, but like what are the models and the requirements and the documents that are going to push your team ahead and move things ahead, and being really practical and results oriented. And I wanted to bring that approach to the profession and realize that like I could make a bigger impact training hundreds and thousands of people to do that than just continuing to be that kind of business analyst on my own. And that was part of what brought me to really bridging the gap eventually into the training company it's become today, was wanting to train others to do that kind of
the same thing. Exactly. I totally agree with you. So we have a question here, and the person says, I want to be a business analyst, but I understand that the communication is one of the key skills, and I'm struggling with improving my writing skills.
Yeah, I would look for a class on writing, and I would also, like, this is where classes on requirements models in particular could be really helpful. Like one of the techniques we teach is use cases, right? And part of, like, we teach, like, the syntax of a use case looks really simple, but we also teach, like, the phrasing of the different steps, and, like, that's part of the writing skills, is getting really clear with
Right.
the user is doing this action. And, like, a common mistake we'll see is, like, in passive voice. So it's not clear who's doing that action, or just that this thing magically happens. Like, is the system doing that, or is the user doing that? And so getting some good training and some analytical tools could also potentially help with the writing skills. But also evaluating, like, are you more of a visual communicator? And are there other roles where written communication maybe isn't as important that would be a better fit for you as well?
Right. And, just start getting practice, I tell people, if you find there's an area that you're lacking in, if there's an opportunity for you to get started with getting your hands dirty, volunteer and say, I'll let me take the minutes of the meeting. Let me start writing out the documentation. You have a template I could use, and I could write a new one or whatever, and then you just get started, right? Because everybody starts from somewhere. Nobody becomes an expert or a superhero from day one, right? Nobody becomes a superhero from day one. You start with learning and improving your skills, and you just start getting better and better at it. All right, it's been so much fun. If you have any other questions, please put your questions in the chat before we call it a day. But I wanted to ask you, Laura. So something that a lot of BAs or even new BAs struggle with is the interviews, and how to actually sell themselves at the interviews. What to say, how to say it. What's your advice to people who have probably gotten some interviews and they didn't get that job, probably because they weren't able to really communicate their value? What's your share on that?
Yeah, my top tip for preparing for interviews is to prepare like 3 to 5 stories. And like look at the job requirements. What are the things that they're looking for? And then think about your past experience and what are the top 3 to 5 experiences that you have in your career, like projects or scenarios that you could share that would represent those. And then practice like telling those stories in as much detail as you can beforehand, so that you've got the details fresh in your mind. You can call up those examples, and then in the interview, then you're looking for which of these stories is going to best articulate my experience related to this question. And I do believe, and even if somebody's asking you a question like, what is a use case? I mean, you should answer that question. A use case is, and then you should say an example. An example of a use case that I've created was this, and the challenge I had with it was this, right? So that because they're really like, they're not looking for the book answer. Even if they ask that of what is a use case, they really want to know, how are you going to be able to use this effectively in our organization and deliver value? And so you just always be coming back to sharing specific examples of your experience will help, I think, the interview go better. And then that's how you show your value, because if you've done it for somebody else, it's implicitly showing that you can do it for them.
Exactly. Once you've done it before, you can do it again. Using your past successes and accomplishments to actually, showcase your value is something that's very important for you getting into the business career. So for someone who's already working as a BA and looking for a way to sort of elevate themselves in their career, or sort of get ahead, right? So you moved from being a system analyst to manager of business analysis to director before you moved into your own consulting. What's your advice with that kind of progression in the business analysis world? Like, how would you advise anyone who wants to sort of progress in their business analysis career?
Yeah, I think the most important question to always ask yourself is like, what do you actually want? right? And we asked that in our coaching programs a lot. And what do you actually want? Like, what does success look like to you? What is the next step in your career? Like, and how does that actually really, really serve you? So if you've already got some experience, like, you have a lot of options. And what I see people do is like, do I need to do this or this or this? And they get into kind of scarcity mode about feeling like their opportunity is going to go away. And so they need to focus on like the most lucrative opportunities or the most cutting edge opportunities. And if, what you really want is X amount of salary, then for sure, like, that's your path. Like, figure out the specialties that are paying the most right now. And as long as you don't hate that, do that. But a lot of times for people, it might be salary, but it might be something else. Right? Like, is working from home or having a different kind of schedule or working on a certain kind of project or having your work make a contribution. Like, what is actually important to you? And to get really, really clear on that. And then looking at, okay, what are my opportunities to get there? And I do really believe in shifting job roles as a way to progress, whether that's in a lateral move in your company or changing companies. It shifts so much, and it does force you to grow those situations. And so, like, unless, your goal is whatever your company provides, but you still want to be moving around some, because then if you are in the case where something happens to your company, you have multiple skill sets to draw from that will be valued by an external company as well, in case, like, we never know, right, what's going to happen.
We never know.
We never knew that 2020 was going to have a pandemic. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are facing that right now. Not to say that lightly whatsoever, but you just never know. And so having the opportunity to move around at least a couple of times gives you that confidence and that experience and some more depth to your experience as well.
Absolutely. I also preach that and say that, if, where you are right now isn't aligned to your own, career and roadmap based on what you want, like you said, would be working from home or a higher salary or a senior position or whatever it is, sometimes stepping out is a great way for you to get that if you can't get it in your organization. All right. Wow, fantastic. We've answered a lot of questions, and we've really had, a great time, talking about, the business analysis career from start to finish, and how, leveraging your transferable skills, how you can use the business analysis, the framework that you've shared, and, making your project successful, and, answering so many other questions. So we're going to wrap it up right now. And I just wanted you to share for people, who are, one, trying to get into business analysis, two, are trying to get that business analyst job, and three, people who are in a role who are trying to move forward. What would be your, your success tips for people who are looking into the business analysis career path and saying, is this really going to be for me? Is it oversaturated? That's why I haven't gotten a job yet. What are your tips or success strategies for these people?
Yeah, I would say look beyond just the job title. So really clarify what being a business analyst means to you, and pay more attention to the responsibilities within some of the job titles than the actual job title. And that will potentially open up additional opportunities for you. And yeah, so it's more about getting started now, like in our current environment, right? Was the question, right? So, and definitely pulling from your past experience, your past expertise, industries, business applications that you have experience in. Often I see people who just want to make this like really hard break with their past, right? And I've done this in my business a couple of times where I feel like, oh, I've got to start everything over just to make sure it really counts. Like that is the hard path. Like, allow yourself to leverage the expertise that you do have, the experience you have. It will make an easier transition, especially in the current environment that we're in now. You want to really make yourself stand out, and the easiest way is to leverage everything that you've done in the past.
Exactly. Absolutely. I totally agree. Wow, it's been fun,
Yeah.
chatting with you, Laura. You shared so much of your knowledge and nuggets and tips for people who want to succeed in the business analysis career, sharing your experience and your journey, from moving from the editorial role, into QA, into BA, and rising in your career from manager to director, and now leading Bridging the Gap. And for sure, your business analysis skills have helped you to run the company successfully, and sort of manage your own business processes and the kind of technology that you use in your business. So you're still using your BA skills every day, for sure.
For
So
sure, for sure. I mean, we have probably 10, at least 10 different technologies, like, and like they've gone through a requirements process to select them. We have, one, just a little bit of transparency. One of the areas we've been a little lax in is actually our business processes. And I think it's like, I thought because I'm a business analyst and I have a really smart person, kind of like operating manager who runs so much of the business.
yeah,
Like he's super smart, and I'm like, oh, we don't need that, right? We're so like, and so we're going back now and like we're analyzing our processes, we're documenting the processes, getting things in place, just to, we fell into that trap of we don't need this because we're business analysts. It's like, no, we're business analysts. We should actually be doing this and have this structured so that we can scale and serve more people.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. And also for me as well, I'm always reviewing what I'm doing and making changes. Is this working?
Yeah.
Can it be better? And trying to also do better personally and also in my business. So I totally get you. And that's why being a business analyst is fun, because you're always thinking of better ways to do things, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love the strategy part of running.
Oh yeah.
It's like BA, it's all the things that you always wanted to tell your executives to do, but now like you get to do it because it's your company.
Right.
Yeah.
So much fun. So much fun. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been great having you on the fireside chat, talking about, the business analysis career path and succeeding in that path. We're super grateful that, you came and you shared with us. We thank you. And for everyone who joined us, thanks for your comments. And also thank you for your questions. Olumide says the best BAs I've worked with are women. So that's great to know.
Yes, I would agree. That question about, I think it's in our own heads, and I know there's stigma out there and things like that, but yeah,
Exactly.
it's up to us to be the great BA. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome. You asked great questions, and I love answering them. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, everyone who joined us. And on that note, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.